Hey everyone, exciting news. We've officially launched the Paranoid Perspective Patreon. If you love what we do, unpacking conspiracies, chasing mysteries, and laughing through the weirdness, now you can support the show and get more of it.
So, for as little as $5 a month, you will get exclusive access and extra perks to the episode. Sarah, what do we get with tier one?
So, tier one is the Curious Minds, and you get a shout out at the end of every episode.
Next tier, this is what you guys really probably want, ad free episodes. We don't need those pesky ads that you guys are getting on Spotify, Apple, whatever else. You will get all episodes ad free, along with what else, Sarah?
You'll also get it ahead of time. So before the episode releases for that week, it'll be available for you to watch or listen.
So, if you guys are interested, check in the show notes down below, or you can head to patreon.com/, the Paranoid Perspective Podcast. Welcome back to the Paranoid Perspective. I am Jake.
And I'm Sarah.
Today we are talking about a story that I guarantee everyone has heard about in some sort of capacity. So, what are we talking about today, Sarah?
About the disappearance of Amelia Earhart. So, really excited for this one.
Yeah. But it's one of those so that's kind of what I like about looking back through history. Like there was a point in time where we talk about today where we don't really know a whole lot about the natural world, but there was a point in time not too long ago we really didn't know shit about shit. And
Yeah,
people were still
right,
just like, I'm gonna get on a boat and I'm going that way, or I'm gonna get on a plane and
right.
I'm just gonna fly. You know what I mean? Like, dude,
Yeah, and hope it works out.
the courage of those individuals to be able just to be like, fuck it, we're doing it. Like, man.
Yeah. Yeah, it's pretty crazy. Also, Fred Noonan was with her, so he also disappeared. No one talks about him, so we're going to talk
Sure.
about him a little bit too.
We're getting everybody that disappeared on that.
Yeah. Yeah, so for people who might not know, I guess, on June 1st, 1937, Amelia Earhart and Fred Noonan attempt to circumnavigate the globe around the equator specifically. So this would have been the longest distance flight recorded since it was around the equator,
Mm-hmm.
and Earhart would be the first like woman to be the pilot for that kind of trip.
Now,
So,
correct me if I'm wrong. People had circumnavigated parts of the world, but nothing to that length, right? At that point?
yes.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, they had never done, because that would be the longest distance,
Right.
because it's the equator. So they had done, I don't know, more north, I think. But but yeah, so on July 2nd is when disaster struck, so it was a little more than a month. They were very close to finishing, but then, we'll get into it, but they disappeared in the Pacific, so. But first, I'd like to get a little bit of Earhart's background, like how she grew up. So she was born July 24th, 1897, which is like crazy to think about.
Yeah, so that's the thing. I can fathom the 19 when someone's like, "Oh
Right.
yeah, whatever." But anytime I hear 18, I'm like, that doesn't sound right.
No, it sounds so far away, but it's not really. But
No,
yeah,
yeah.
so she was born in Kansas. I didn't really
Okay.
know that either. Her parents were Edwin and Amy. So she was the second child after they had an infant who had been stillborn the year before. So she was the oldest alive, and then she had a younger sister, Grace. And I guess their mom didn't believe in raising like quiet girls. So like she let them wear pants, which they called bloomers then, and like have adventures kind of solo. So I feel like that kind of kicked off the way Amelia was.
100%.
And yeah, and she was a tomboy too growing up. And they were homeschooled and then they moved to Des Moines, Iowa. So then she had to enter public school in seventh grade there. So she was like 12. But then when she was 16 in 1914, her father was forced to retire from his job. He was a claims officer for the Rock Island Railroad. He had problems with drinking.
Well,
So
as one does during that time.
Yeah. So he lost his job, and then at the same time, her grandma died suddenly. So her grandma left an estate in Amelia's mom's trust fund because she was afraid that Amelia's dad would take it to drink.
Yeah, good
So
move.
then yeah, but then they couldn't access that for a while. I'm not really sure what happened, but since it's in a trust and everything, so they had to sell their home. So then Amelia said that was kind of the end of her childhood in her mind
Well,
because
yeah, I
all
mean,
this happened.
well, and you got to grow up really quick when that sort of tragedy strikes and you don't have any
Right.
money.
Yeah. So they moved to Chicago. She finished her schooling at Hyde Park High School in 1916. So then she ended up visiting her sister in Toronto, and she saw a lot of wounded soldiers coming back from World War One. And she also like trained as a nurse's aide from the Red Cross to try and help these people. And that's when she started hearing stories from military pilots. And then she was interested in flying from those stories. So it's not like something she always was interested in, but then the Spanish flu hit in 1918, and she ended up being hospitalized for pneumonia in November, and she was discharged in December, so that was okay. But she ended up having sinus-related symptoms for like a year, and then she had chronic sinusitis like come and go for the rest of her
Yeah,
life because of that.
yeah. I'm
Yeah.
a quick note on that. That was like the big pandemic then, and I've always been kind of curious if we're going to be talking in 60 years from now about people
Yeah.
that have the same issue. You know what I mean?
Right.
Which
Yeah.
I guarantee you it's going to happen just because of how rampant and bad it was for a lot of people. So same
Right.
thing, even almost a century ago.
Yeah. Or like people still can't taste and smell, right, from COVID.
Yeah, from what I've heard. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
It's kind of nice to be
Yeah.
able to say that on social media and not worry about getting banned now.
Yeah.
We can
Yeah,
say
it's
the
been
C
long
word,
enough, I
Sarah.
guess. Right. But yeah, the sinusitis did affect her flying sometimes, and that she'd have to wear a bandage on her cheek. I guess she had like a small drainage tube like out of her cheek. So, but then December 1920, she flew as a passenger with Frank Hawks, who he later became a famous air racer. But she said after she flew with him, she knew she had to fly planes. So, like the next month, she booked her first flying instructor for $500, which was
A lot. Yeah, I
$8,000
was going to say that
today.
was a lot.
Yeah. So her first lesson was January 3rd, 1921, and then 6 months later, she bought a yellow Kenner Airster biplane, which she nicknamed the Canary, and then she flew solo the first time with that plane. And then October 22nd, 1922, she flew her plane to an altitude of 14,000 feet, which that was a record for female pilots. I guess they never could have flown. I don't know why that's a record. No one had gone that high as a woman, I guess. So,
Hey, at that point, we're pushing boundaries and it doesn't even matter what we're pushing. You know what I mean?
yeah. So on May 16th, 1923, she ended up being the 16th woman in the US to be issued a pilot's license.
Wow.
Yeah. So I don't know who these other people were before that, though.
I'd be interested to find out.
Yeah. So in the early 1920s, she had an investment in a gypsum mine, but then that ended up failing. So she really like lost most of her money, and she was using her inheritance from her grandma to like fund her pilot classes and stuff. So she ended up having to sell the Canary, and she bought a yellow two-seat automobile, which she nicknamed the Yellow Peril. So she was grounded for a little bit, but then her parents ended up divorcing in 1924. So she drove her mom from California to Alberta, Canada, with
Holy
in that
shit.
car. Yeah, yeah, so far. But she didn't have anything else to do, I guess.
I suppose.
They did stop in Boston, where she had another sinus operation, which at that point was pretty successful, and she didn't seem to have as much issue after that. But she did also find employment a little bit in Boston as a teacher and then a social worker. And then she also joined the American Aeronautical Society's Boston chapter, where she became vice president. eventually.
Nice.
And she wrote a lot of newspaper columns during this time too, promoting flying. And she laid out plans for making an organization that was dedicated for female pilots. Um, she was just randomly called out of the blue on April 1928. I guess because all of her stuff with flying and stuff, but they asked if she wanted to do a transatlantic flight with pilot Wilmer Stoltz and co-pilot Lewis Gordon. So she agreed to do that. So she wasn't flying that still. She was like the passenger.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
But I think for publicity, or I'm
Yeah.
not really sure why. Yeah. But they left Newfoundland on June 17th, 1928, and they landed in South Wales hours and 40 minutes later. So very long flight. But yeah, she didn't help pilot, like I said, but this trip gave her the idea to do her own like long distance solo trips.
Right. Yeah.
So the first one was August 1928. She flew across the North American continent and back.
Okay, so just
So
like back and forth pretty much.
yeah.
Okay.
And then after she did that trip, she became a celebrity. I guess
Well,
it was
as
very
one does.
public. Yeah.
I
She
mean,
was dubbed, yeah.
well, I mean, especially at that time. I mean,
Yeah.
women weren't doing that sort of thing. I mean, yeah, you're a modern day rock star because, you know, your mom lets you wear pants.
Right. Yeah, she's so hip and edgy.
Yeah.
She was dubbed Lady Lindy as well as Queen of the Air. That was her nicknames after
Like,
this
I get
solo
the Queen
trip.
of the Air part, Lady Lindy. What the
I
hell does
don't
that come
know.
from?
Maybe her middle name, I'm not really sure.
Yeah.
I don't know her middle name, but and then she ended up going on lecture tours for 2 years, and she published a book, and it did a lot of product promotion, like women's clothing and cigarettes. So she was just
Well,
enjoying her celebrity, I can't
yeah.
status.
Hey, it happens to me all the time. You got to get yours too, okay,
I
Sarah?
got it now. Yeah, and she used like all the money she was getting from this to finance her flying. So she could do all of her trips still. She also promoted aviation a lot, and she was a really big factor in like public acceptance of commercial air travel too.
Well, because I think it's one of those things that obviously people now take for granted, but that
Yeah.
wasn't something that everybody just did. It was a
Right.
select
Yeah.
group of people that were flying these planes. Because I mean, you have to think that this is such, even still, is such a, at that time was still such a new technology and like
Yeah.
cutting edge.
Right. And I think people were afraid probably
A
too,
hundred percent.
and it was probably expensive and
Well,
like
it'd be the same thing right now if somebody was like, "Hey, we're doing the first couple hundred people that are going to Mars. Who's going?" Yeah, there's
right.
going to be some
Yeah,
people
I'm not
going,
going.
but a lot of people are going to be like, "Nah, I'm going to let it go for like a couple thousand before I know that it's that's
Yeah.
good."
Right. Yeah, that's true. So at that time she was engaged to Samuel Chapman, and he was a chemical engineer in Boston. But she ended up breaking it off with him in November 1928, and then she eventually married George Putnam, which was her publisher for her book.
Mm,
So
okay.
they got married February 1931. So, a couple years after she broke it up. So it's proper, maybe.
She's not just jumping over to the next guy, you know.
But I guess she's quoted as believing in equal responsibilities during the marriage, and she also refused to take his last name. So,
That's pretty. That is really edgy for the time.
yeah,
Like that.
right.
Yeah.
But she's a celebrity status, so it's probably more accepted, but I don't know.
Sure, but even that, like it was pretty like, especially in North America, mostly
Yeah,
America or the United States, that there were the roles that you played, you know.
right. Yeah, and I guess George sometimes was even called Mr. Earhart. So I wonder how he felt about that. But
Probably not too great, but considering the circumstances, I guess I could understand.
yeah. So in May 1932, she did her first transatlantic solo flight. So she went from Newfoundland to Northern Ireland, and that took almost 15 hours. So she became the first woman to fly solo nonstop across the Atlantic. I mean, that's a long time. And then, she did a lot of other ones, like she flew from Hawaii to California, from LA to Mexico City to New York. I mean, she was just always doing this. And she participated in long distance air racing too, I guess.
Cool. Yeah.
So between 1930 and 1935, she set 7 women's speed and distance aviation records. The next thing she wanted to do was a trip around the equator, because that would be the most distance. So she started planning this trip in 1935, and she decided like all the stops that she would be taking on that trip to like stay as close to the equator as she could, because
Hmm.
there still needs to be an island or something. So it wasn't exactly the equator, but um, she also got funding from Purdue University to build a custom Lockheed Electra 10E, which had modifications to allow for extra fuel tanks so she could make this trip. Yeah, so the plan was a 2-person crew, so she would be flying and then she'd have a navigator. And her first navigator was Captain Harry Manning. And he was also a pilot and a skilled radio operator who knew Morse code. So that'd be
Okay.
helpful.
Right.
So during practices, though, they like practiced across the US together. He started getting concerned. Well, no, Putnam, her fiance, whatever, whoever, husband, I guess. He started getting concerned with the navigator because I guess there were some errors, like small errors that he was doing. Like Earhart would use landmarks to know where she was. I don't know how
Uh-huh.
you can see so high up, though, a landmark, but I don't know. That's how she would do it. But then he was using a navigation fix, which I guess using that put them slightly off course, but he thought it was fine. But then, such a big distance to be off course, you're going to end up
Well,
not at all where you want to
yeah,
be.
I was going to say, and especially if you're planning to circumnavigate the equator, a large portion of that trip is going to be over the ocean where you do not have
Yes.
landmarks and you aren't going to be able to, if you have a small error, like you said, even a degree, and you go a
Right.
couple 100 miles, that's going to take you way off course.
Right. Yeah. And they also did a night flight test, which like had poor conditions, of course. So then his positioning ended up being off by 20 miles.
Wow.
Yeah. So they didn't feel comfortable with this, so they got rid of him and then they picked Fred Noonan as the new navigator. So I'm just going to say a little bit about him too, because no one
No,
talks
yeah,
about
for
him.
sure. Yeah.
Yeah. He was born April 4th, 1893, so he's like only 4 years older than
Yeah.
Earhart. And he was born in Cook County, Illinois, but he didn't have the best childhood. So his mother died when he was 4, and his father was reported in a census as like living alone when he would have been 7. So it seems like not really sure where he grew up, but not with his dad, and maybe other relatives or friends or something. But he ended up leaving school in the summer of 1905, so he was 12,
I was about to
and
say,
he
yeah, he
went
wasn't even a teenager.
no, and he went to Seattle, like alone, I guess.
Shit. So
Yeah,
from
and
Midwest to Pacific Northwest, just no big deal as a 12 year
right.
old?
Yeah, I guess. Just hop trains or something. I
Man.
don't know. He became a seaman at an early age. So he was shipped out when he was 17 on a British sailing ship called the Crompton. So between 1910 and 1915, he worked on over a dozen ships, and during World War One, he served aboard several like merchant ships for America and Britain. He never did serve in the Navy. Overall, he had a 22-year career at sea, which included sailing around Cape Horn 7 times. So after this, he wanted a new career direction, so he learned to fly in the late 1920s, and he received a limited commercial pilot's license in 1930. So he ended up working for Pan Am in the early
Cool.
1930s
Yeah.
as a navigation instructor, and he was also like really important in charting the commercial airline routes like across the Pacific Ocean. that we
Oh,
have now.
okay. Yeah.
But then I guess something happened after his last flight. It was like a 16-day like marathon as a navigator for the Philippine Clipper, which concluded on December 1736. So he apparently said at the end of that, like, we've lived on promises for a year, I'm through. And then he resigned immediately. So I'm not sure
Okay.
what happened. Yeah. But that opened him up to be Earhart's navigator.
Hey, it
So
all worked well. It
yeah,
worked out for
exactly.
that.
Yeah. So yeah, they had met through mutual connections in the LA aviation community. So he agrees to be her navigator. Their first attempt was actually March 17th. They're supposed to do the 16th, but they had to delay a day because of the weather. And they were going to go from California to Hawaii as the first part, and they were going to go, what was that, west around. That was the idea. And they had, well, first they had Amelia and Fred and the other guy, like Manning, and this other guy, Mance. I just have their last names.
That's
But I'm
fair.
not sure why there were four in the thing at first. But after they landed, there were problems with the aircraft and it needed servicing. So then it took 3 days to do that, and they were going to take off from Hawaii to Howland Island. But the flight like couldn't get off the ground. Like the landing gear failed, and it ended up like the wing came down and it like scraped on its belly. So they're not really sure what happened with that, but she thought either the tire had blown or the landing gear collapsed. So, but other people that were there, they said it was pilot error. So they're already throwing shade at Amelia.
Well, as one does when you're a, hotshot celebrity woman in the mid
Right.
30s. So, yeah.
Yeah. So they did a second attempt on June 1st. So this is where they actually took off, and it was also unpublicized. And they had to go east to west instead of west to east because of like the weather patterns since it had been delayed for like 3 months or 2 months or whatever. So they went from California to Miami, and on this flight, only Fred was with her. I think the other two were like didn't like her or were worried about if they thought it was pilot error. So
Yeah, I
it
was
ended
going
up
to
just
say they were
being
probably the ones being assholes saying it was pilot error.
right. Yeah, so it just ended up being Fred and Amelia. So they had stops in South America, Africa, India, Southeast Asia, and they arrived in New Guinea on June 29th. So it had already been 28 days.
Yeah, okay. I was about to say almost a month.
Yeah. So at this point, they had covered 22,000 miles already, and they only needed 7,000 left. So they were on the home stretch. But this would be like over the entire Pacific Ocean.
I was
So
about to say this is the long haul that is going to be kind of scary.
yeah. So on July 2nd, they took off from New Guinea and they wanted to go to Howland Island, which is like a very flat, like sliver of land. Like it's very easy to miss. And I don't know, it's only like a mile by 2 miles.
Wow.
Yeah. And I guess she also like she had been with her celebrity status, she had been like friends with the first lady at the time who was whoever that was. I don't remember. I just watched a video on it and I don't remember who it was, but they were friends and she convinced the US government to make a airstrip on Howland Island just for her thing
Holy
because
shit.
there was like nothing there. And she was like, I really want to do this and make it and I need a place to land, and they ended up making her an airstrip there. So
Well, talk about being important.
yeah, so that's crazy. But yeah, so there's literally nothing there except an airstrip that they had just made like a year ago or something. So the expected flight time was supposed to be 18 hours, and they left with 1,100 gallons of gasoline. And then their last known position report was near Nukumanu Islands, which was about 800 miles into the flight. So not
So
that
not
like
far
close
at
to.
all.
Yeah. So this 18-hour like flight time was calculated by Fred Noonan, which like calculating it involves using like the onboard compass to like set their bearing and then calculate the amount of time it should take, like when you know the headwind and the speed that you're going. And also they didn't aim directly at the Helen Island. because they were timing themselves. So they knew if they hit like 18 hours and they couldn't find it, then they should turn like north or south to get to it
I
to
gotcha.
make
Okay.
a, yeah. Because if they had passed the time and they were going directly towards it, never saw it, they wouldn't know which way to go. So they picked, I'm not sure which direction they picked, but they either picked north or south. They calculated the time and they were on their way. But then the ground crew, like, they had estimated the headwind was 24 kilometers per hour. But then 20 minutes later, they warned Amelia that the headwinds were stronger, and she didn't acknowledge receiving this message. So their calculations already off. So I don't know how much, but he also did celestial navigation where he took like measurements of the sun, moon, and stars to like verify their position. So I guess he was doing that over time. But like I said about the other kind of navigation that other guy was doing, like you can miscalculate like small on this one, and then it could cause huge discrepancies still over large distances. So that's not the best like backup plan.
Yeah.
Uh, and I guess the same issue had happened earlier in their journey over the Atlantic, where they ended up being slightly off and they didn't land in their intended airport because they couldn't see it and it was like hazy conditions as well. So they ended up landing like slightly north of it in a different location. But it's like you can't do that when you have just
Yeah.
Howland Island.
Yeah. Surrounded by hundreds, if not thousands of miles of Pacific Ocean.
Yeah. So that is a little concerning, but they're fine. So, and they don't make it, obviously. So we'll get to that. But the U.S. Coast Guard also sent three different, I don't think they're battleships, but like ships, I guess.
Yeah. Okay.
But one was halfway between like New Guinea and Howland Island. And then one was at Howland Island. And then one was like past that, like halfway between Howland Island and Hawaii. So they were supposed to do like smoke stacks and stuff to help her
Okay.
see
Yep.
as a positional. And I guess she never saw any of them. So that's a concern. But
Yeah. Way off then.
yeah, I don't know what happened. But they were also supposed to. So Itasca was the one by the island. So the Itasca was also supposed to transmit a radio homing signal to make it easier to find without the celestial navigation
Mm-hmm.
because she had like radios on the airplane and she could like position the radio and it would if you turn it then it'll catch the wave like the radio wave, so
Oh,
then
okay.
when she
Okay.
hears it they were supposed to just kind of do like one like steady letter in Morse code or something. So once she heard it, she could see which way the radio thing is positioned and could know to go that way. But she didn't hear that either, apparently. She never found that.
We just
So
have
it's just
multiple levels
all,
of failures.
yeah, right. And like I said, they were supposed to use the boilers to make smoke, which would create a dark column of smoke that like they'd be able to see over the horizon. But that didn't help either because that day there were a lot of low clouds. So they're thinking that the smoke ended up just looking like the clouds.
Yep. Yep.
So yeah, all these methods that they had and none of them worked. So, and they had like four ideas or whatever, but also they were meant to use voice communications at like 1305 kilohertz during the night and at 6210 kilohertz during the day. But there was some kind of misunderstanding with this as well because Earhart was using Greenwich Mean Time and the Itasca was using a naval time zone designation system, so they weren't on the right times
Yep.
to
So they're off on not only, possibly a very bad calculation of headwind versus speed and also different times from what they're trying to communicate with.
yes, yeah. And so, they were probably switching the hertz to be at different times.
Yeah.
But She also had an RDF beacon to find the Itasca, which the plane could listen, like I said, while rotating it and stuff. So, a sharp minimum and maximum would indicate that that's the direction to go when she turned the thing. But I guess her RDF equipment failed during an earlier leg of the trip, and it was replaced, and it might not have been replaced correctly. So,
Sounds like it. Everything else is messed up.
yeah. Well, also though she could hear the transmission from the Itasca at like 7,500 kilohertz. But I guess when it's that high, like if it's above, I think I read like 5,000 or something, then the way it bounces off the atmosphere, it's going to give you false readings, like directions.
Uh,
Like it'll
Okay.
come from
Yeah.
many different, yeah. So she could hear it, but she couldn't get the proper direction off of it
Yeah.
because it was like everywhere.
All right.
So none of that worked. And also, there were not, I think the Itasca didn't have voice. Like, there wasn't a way for them to talk to each other. They had to use, like, just the beeps or Morse code or something else. Like, so that's fun. But
Well, so that's the thing I was going to say. Like back then, like I think once again, we're looking at a perspective of like where we live now. Communication fucking sucked.
yeah.
Like even in the 80s and 90s to some extent. You know what I mean?
Right.
I can't even imagine just waiting for some frequency or some Morse code just to help me get to where I need to go while I'm surrounded by nothing but ocean.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. And also, people say like RDF equipment at that time was not designed to work above 2,000 kilohertz, I guess.
Okay. Well,
And I guess there's a couple sources too that said she maybe didn't understand that system very well because it had just been fitted to the aircraft before they took off at the beginning of the trip, and she hadn't really needed it until now.
I see.
So she might not have really known what was going on anyway with it. Okay, so the Itasca received calls. So I think they could hear her, she couldn't hear them. So they received calls from her at 2:45 a.m. and at 5 a.m. on July 2nd with like routine reports, and she couldn't hear back from them, which I think they were thinking they would be able to talk. At 6:14 a.m., another call was received stating that the aircraft was within 200 miles of the ship and for the ship to use the smokestacks to try
Mm-hmm.
and let her see where it was. And then radio operators on the Itasca realized that their RDF system was not tuning in to the aircraft's like 3105 frequency that they had agreed on. So they just could I don't think that worked at all. And at 6:45 a.m., she asked like for a bearing and had estimated that they were 100 miles out, but she literally couldn't see like anything. She said like she couldn't, no ship, no nothing. Like she couldn't find anything to home in on, and they're like 100 miles away.
Man, that has to be
So
terrifying.
yeah. And then at 7:30, the radio log said that Earhart said she was on the northwest, running out of gas, and she had only half an hour left, and she couldn't hear them. And then they said like, "We hear you," and they were trying to do that frequency thing, but it wasn't working. And then again at 7:42, she said the gas was running low again and she was unable to reach by radio. So they were flying at 1,000 feet to try and get closer to see if they could find them at all, like the ship and stuff. So they're flying pretty low.
Yeah.
I mean, a
Yeah, I was
thousand
going to
feet.
say, yeah, that's nothing.
Yeah. And then at 7:50, oh, yeah.
Hang on just a second. My computer is freaking out right now.
Okay.
I might lose you for just a second. Hang on.
Oh, okay.
Okay. Jesus, I don't know what was happening.
That's weird.
Okay. Sorry.
Oh, you're fine. Um, Yeah, so at 7:58, again, she said she couldn't hear the Itasca. She asked them to send voice signals so she could try to find it on the radio. And it was reported by the Itasca that this was like the loudest possible signal that they got from her. So that indicated they were like in the immediate area.
Yeah, I mean,
So it's weird. Yeah. It's weird they didn't like see them at all.
Yeah, I mean, if it's that close, I mean, you can if it's flying that low and that close, you would think they would even be able to hear the plane possibly.
Right.
Like,
Yeah, that's what I think. I don't know. It's a little weird. Also, they didn't have any flares or something. They couldn't
yeah,
like.
that's another weird thing. Like the smokestack stuff I get cuz that's how they're going to try to help her make sure she's on course. But you're talking to US Coast Guard personnel. They're they
Yeah.
would have some sort of flare system, light system, some sort of beacon to do
Right.
something.
Yeah, so that's a little weird. But the Itasca couldn't send a voice at the frequency that she was asking for, so they sent Morse code instead, which she did acknowledge receiving that, but she still couldn't determine her direction from it, I guess. So her last known transmission was at 8:43. So it'd been almost an hour, like well past when she said she wasn't had any gas. I don't know.
Yeah,
It
that is
seems like
weird.
because she said she was running low at 7:42,
With
and
a
now it's
half hour.
8:43.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. But she said we are on the line 157337, and they were just gonna follow that down, I guess, like I guess that's longitude, right? And she said we will repeat this message on 6210 kilocycles, and then she said wait. I'm not really sure the wait is for. Um, But yeah, it seems like she thought they had reached like Howland's charted position, but I guess they were incorrect by about 5 nautical miles.
Even still, like even being 1,000 feet
Yeah.
up, you would think you'd be able to see some inkling of something.
Right. Yeah, it's a little weird that like the ship never heard them at least, like you said. Like I could see her not being able to see the ship, but they should have seen her.
Yeah.
But no one did at all, so yeah, and they tried to generate smoke like one last time, and she obviously didn't see it. And yeah, there were a lot of clouds in the area, and it caused like dark shadows on the surface. So she probably just couldn't see it. And the island's just so
Small.
flat and like
Yeah.
a ship. Yeah, so yeah, after this, they tried to reach her like with voice and Morse code, but everything was unsuccessful after that. So they probably did crash at that point, I guess. I mean, an hour after saying they have no gas or whatever. And the Itasca ended up searching north and west of Howland Island, like shortly after they received that last message. And the US Navy also joined and looked for 3 days. And after 4 days, the captain of the battleship Colorado was ordered to take over all naval and Coast Guard units to coordinate search efforts. And they also searched the Phoenix Islands, which was south of Howland Island, and they searched Gardner Island. I might have a map if you want to look at it again. Do you want to look at the map?
Yeah, let's see the map.
Share screen. Which one? Nope. Pick a window. This one. Okay. The map.
I see the map, Sarah. The technology.
This is where they took off. And here's Howland Island, and then Gardner Island's down there, and the Phoenix Island is not on here, but I think it's
Just south of that.
in between.
Or in
I don't
between.
know. I think it's in between. So there's the map. Sorry if you're just listening. You can pull up
Great
the
podcasting material right here.
Google Maps. Okay, well, they're both south of Howland Island,
Yeah.
so they looked there. Let me stop sharing. Okay. Yeah, and they thought that she could have landed the plane in Gardner Island because there's like a lagoon there, and they could have swam ashore onto Gardner Island. And they did see signs of recent habitation on Gardner Island, but they didn't see any people or wreckage. So I don't know, some other castaway that they was not lucky
Some
enough to get found.
poor unfortunate soul. Wouldn't that be some shit
Yeah,
if they're trying to find, this celebrity, sweetheart of American that is trying to circumnavigate and some dude is just like, "Oh my god, I've been waiting for years." And they're like, "We're not looking for you.
right.
Go back to what you're doing, man."
Yeah. Yeah, you're surviving here. You're
Yeah.
fine.
Surviving,
Have you
thriving.
seen a
We're good.
woman and a man?
Yeah.
No? Okay, get out of here.
Yeah.
So they literally found nothing, like no wreckage, like not even a piece of anything. And they called up the search on July 19th. So they searched for, 17 days.
Yeah.
And then her husband ended up financing private search by local authorities, like immediately after the search was called off. So he searched the Pacific Islands and the waters around there, and he concentrated on the Gilberts, which was also not on my map, because, or
Well,
my second map.
the hard part about this is that part of the world, there are like these hundreds, if
Yeah,
not thousands, of just these small, little, tiny islands, you know. And at that point
right.
in time, I mean, you weren't able to truly, what would be the best way to say this? Have like a productive search of that. You know what I mean?
Yeah. No,
So,
it'd be so hard.
I mean,
Yeah,
it's hard now. I mean, we talked about
right.
that with what was the
The
flight? Yeah,
Malaysia.
the Malaysia flight. I mean, it's hard to
Yeah.
do that now. So
Yeah.
you're looking at, like I said, almost a decade ago. It's the same thing, you know,
Yeah.
or not
He
decade,
also,
century. Sorry, got my
yes.
times wrong.
Yeah, I
Correct
knew
me.
what you
Don't make
meant,
me
but
look
yeah.
like an idiot. People are gonna
Well,
say I'm stupid.
when you said it, I was like, "Yep, that sounds right." I just added a zero, but automatically was like, "Yeah."
Yep, sounds good. Don't mind
I don't
me.
know. He also directed searches on Phoenix Islands, Christmas Island, Fanning Island, and the Marshall Islands, which the Marshall Islands are north. So
Mm,
he went like north and south.
yeah.
And they did not find anything either. So, and then he requested to become the trustee of her estate to finance these searches. And he also requested, well, because she had money
No,
in her
no,
estate.
I know that, but if he's married to her, wouldn't that automatically go?
I don't know. Unless it was like her personal something, because she wasn't declared dead yet.
That's fair. It was
So,
probably because he was all like, "Well, you have to be referred to as Mr. Earhart from now on."
yeah, maybe.
He's like, "I ain't playing that shit."
Yeah, he also requested um a declared death in absentia, which I guess usually they wait 7 years for that, but he wanted to waive that
Well, yeah, he wanted
to
the money
get
to help
right.
finance the search, of course.
Yeah, of course, yeah. So this was granted by the court in LA, and as a result, she was declared legally dead on January 5th, 1939, and she was 41. So it took 2 years still since, or a year and a half, I guess. So I can get into the theories. I mean,
Let's.
first, what do you think happened?
I think they crashed. A plane went into the ocean and it sank. That's what I think.
Yeah.
I don't. I've heard theories about like the Pacific triangles and like weird
Yeah.
things that have happened, and I'm just like, I'm here for the weird stuff and interdimensional whatever voids and gaps and times and all that. But no, realistically, I think they definitely just got off course, started running out of fuel. They were probably freaking the fuck out, as you would, running out of fuel
Right.
over the ocean.
Yeah.
The thought process as the fuel started running down was probably getting to almost the point of panic. And
Yeah.
they probably sat it down in the ocean. And I, I've heard that like water landings are possible, but they're really, really, really hard to do.
Yeah.
You usually end up like flipping when you do that.
Yeah,
So
and then it shreds the
yeah,
plane and
and then it's just there's no anything to be found because everything is going to sink. Now, there very well could have been some pieces that washed ashore in some of these islands or some pieces that were floating. But once again, at that time, I don't think like the people, especially living in that area, probably weren't really worried about seeing some floating metal debris. They probably just thought like, "Oh, that's weird,"
right. Yeah.
you
Yeah,
know?
they probably didn't think too much about it. Okay, well, I have maybe three theories, and they're all basically based in reality. They're not that about the triangle or whatever.
Okay,
Okay, so the first one is that, I mean, that they crashed and sank.
okay,
The crash and sink theory. So That's what it's called. Most historians do think that's what happened. Like, they ran out of fuel, like you said. They had to ditch into the sea, and either the plane fell apart or not, but they ended up dying, in the ocean.
As a result of the crash or drowning or something.
Right. Yeah, because the plane carried only enough fuel to reach Howland Island, and it did have a little bit extra for contingencies, but it wasn't enough for like how long they were communicating with the Itasca,
Yeah, you're not
like
going to
searching
get
for
to
Howland,
any
like
of
I
the other
said.
islands if that's where you're shooting for.
Yeah. Um, and yeah, during the 1970s, I guess a retired U.S. Navy captain, Lawrence Safford, he analyzed her flight plan and concluded that the flight suffered from poor planning, worse execution.
Dick.
Yeah. So that's probably what happened, but here's a couple other theories. So one is the Japanese capture theory. So this says that they somehow navigated to the Japanese South Seas Mandate and they crash landed on the island of Saipan, where they were then captured and executed by Japanese forces.
Okay.
Let me show you, let me share again. Let's see the screen where Saipan is with my new map, second map. Here's where they were supposed to go, Howland Island, and way to the north and like back past where they started, I feel like, is Saipan.
Yeah. Okay. So instead of saying, hey, we're going to go straight east, relatively speaking,
Yeah.
we're actually going to go northwest when we take off from
Yes.
here. No.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're so backwards and they don't know how to navigate apparently that they're going to end up way over there.
Yeah. They made it, what
So,
did you say, 22,000 miles so far at that point?
yes.
So
Right.
so they made it 22,000 miles and everything was hunky dory as far
Right.
as navigation goes, and then all of a sudden they just don't know how to navigate. Come on, man.
Right. Yeah, the theory did change to the Marshall Islands, like they landed there, but that's still, I mean, that's more believable because it is north and like, east from where they started.
Well, so yeah, like we were talking about earlier, a small deviation that is definitely more plausible to me that they ended up somewhere
Right.
closer to the Marshall Islands. Hence why nobody could see them when they were coming in and trying to figure out where they were at.
Right. Yeah. So, let's stop sharing for now. I'll bring it back up,
We
but
never stop sharing, Sarah.
um yeah. So there is a different variation of this theory that the Japanese shot down her plane, like maybe from one of their own ships or something.
Okay.
Because I guess since the end of World War II, a location on Tinian, which is 5 miles southwest of Saipan, has been rumored to be the grave of two aviators. Like, because this
Interesting.
was it was the start of World War II, I
Yeah, I was
guess,
going to
right when
say
she
start.
disappeared.
Yeah.
So I guess there's a rumor that two aviators are buried there, which
Hmm.
I don't know how they'd end up there still, but I guess there was an archaeological dig in 2004 though, and they didn't find any bones. So
So there's graves, but no bodies.
yeah, I guess they're grave robbing. But yeah, I don't know. A number of her relatives have been convinced that the Japanese were somehow involved, and I guess there's like witnesses, but they're all, of course, they're unnamed, but they say like there's people in Saipan that say they saw them or like Japanese troops or whatever.
Well, I think a lot of that has to do with when they attacked Pearl Harbor. Like everybody had this overwhelming hatred for Japan. So,
Yeah.
and it's close enough to when she disappeared to where they could attribute, like, yeah, those motherfuckers probably had something to do with it. You know,
Yeah. So the last theory is the Gardner Island hypothesis, which I guess the Gardner Island is now called Niku Maroro.
everybody likes
I
that.
don't, that's what it's called now, but so that's like south of Howland Island.
Okay.
So it suggests that, if they couldn't have found it after their time had stopped and they turned whatever direction they're supposed to go, and they wouldn't have kept wasting time trying to find it, but they still were communicating with Itasca, so I'm not sure about this. But it says they would have tried to go south looking for any other island to land. And the radio transmission where they said 157337 suggested like they flew a course for 157 degrees, which would take them past Baker Island. And if they missed that island, then they would go over like Gardner Island, which is now Nikumororo. So they could have ended up there. Let me share at least one last time. Maybe. Well, not one more. I have one more after this, actually. But it's like almost directly south of it.
Yeah. That's okay. So yeah, for listeners
So
that
that
are,
seems more,
yeah, for listeners that
yeah,
are, you know, not on the YouTube for this, that makes a lot of sense because it is literally almost due south, a little southeast, but like it's almost in
yeah,
line.
right. Yeah, and I can stop. Okay. So a week after she had disappeared, like Navy planes from the USS Colorado said they searched that island, the Gardner Island, and that's where they had seen recent habitation, but they didn't see any plane or people. So some people say maybe she was there. I don't know why she wouldn't have gotten help or how they wouldn't find, because it's not a big, none of these are big.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah. These
so
these
I don't really know.
these are so small, like in World War II when the Japanese was taking them over. That's why they were able to control so much of the Pacific Ocean so quickly because they were just
Yeah,
small island nations where they could just come in, run shop, and take over. And it's the same thing that we
right.
did with the Marine Corps and the Army when we, you know, kicked them out of there. We were island hopping.
Yeah. So April 1940, skull was found on that island, and other bones were found in September. So people like, I don't know where these ended up. People collected them and they ended up being ruled out because they thought they were male bones at the time.
Okay, but she was with a guy
Well,
too.
yeah, she was with, yeah, no one remembers him, Fred
So,
Noonan. But they ruled it out, I guess. And these bones went somewhere in a vault and no one can find them now because like a scientist in 2018 like ran the bones measurements from the data that was collected in like forensic software, like modern software, and compared them to like an estimation of like Earhart based on like clothing and photographs.
right.
And the analysis found that they matched Earhart better than 99% of other individuals. So they're thinking this was her and the bones are lost. So can't do anything else like DNA or anything at this point. But they might have been her. So this led to the theory that she somehow landed there and survived a little bit, maybe,
Possibly.
and then
Well,
died.
if she did, if they did make it to an island, they would have survived for at least a handful of days, you know,
Right.
until they died of either dehydration or exposure or whatever, you know, or if they had injuries from the plane crash, you know. So
Yeah.
it makes sense if they did make it to an island, you probably would find something, some remains of somebody.
Right. It just sucks that those are like disappeared.
It's probably in some like
So,
rich weirdo's house that's like claiming
yeah.
it's like, oh yes, come and check out my skull of Amelia. This is where I, you know,
Yeah, probably. Hey, if you're listening, donate it to science so we can
yeah,
find out.
rich weirdo that's listening to random podcasts on the internet. If you have Amelia
Yeah.
Earhart's skull, give it back. It belongs in a museum.
Right.
What's
Oh, we
that
should at
from,
least do
Sarah?
DNA testing. I don't know. It
Come
belongs in
on.
a museum.
Indiana Jones, Sarah. Come on.
I haven't watched that in a long time. I'm just
Disappointed.
bad about whatever. What's that called? About remembering like
Thanks.
lines. Yeah, like movie lines. Like
No,
I'm really bad
I
about
know. I'm just giving you shit.
whatever that's called. So in 2024, there was $1 million expedition by Tony Romeo and his deep sea vision team. So he's based in South Carolina and he's a deep sea explorer. That's his job, I guess. And he had captured a sonar image of an aircraft shaped object in the Pacific Ocean. So he thought maybe it was hers. But when they did go down to see, they saw in November that it was a rock formation that just happened to look like an airplane.
Yep.
But most recently, this is the most recent update, an Oregon-based archaeologist, Dr. Richard Pettigrew, he's going to go to Niku Island and investigate a visual anomaly that has been found like since 2015, like via satellite. And he says this looks like a plane, like her could have been her plane.
Really?
And I guess, yeah, the object is called the Tararia
We'll go with that.
object. Yeah. Oh, it's like Taraia. Taraia. Okay. Let me share last time. I'm sharing my screen. This is flagged on Google Maps because I looked yesterday and you can see on Google Maps the tire.
The title.
But I don't know. They're saying this looks like an airplane, like the tail and the body, I guess.
Yeah, it definitely is airplane shaped for sure. It's sitting what
Yeah.
maybe uh
It's like right off the
I
coast.
was gonna say it's like literally maybe 15, 20 yards off the beach, you know?
Yeah, and it's in shallow water, so it should be easy to explore. Yeah, he said that it was found in 2015 because like a storm, what is it? Like a storm surge had uncovered some of the sediment, so it
I see.
became visible. Yeah,
So it wasn't always
right.
okay. I got you.
Yeah, it had been covered up by sediment and stuff. But then in 2015, from storm currents, it was partially uncovered. It has been like less defined on the satellite like since then, so maybe it's getting covered again.
Well, but they know where
But
it's
it's
at.
still right, yeah. Yeah, and it's marked on Google Maps, so they're gonna be able to find it. But he said his team's gonna go look there in August.
Okay. So
But
coming up here.
first, yeah. But first he said he has to have financial backing.
Oh, of
I'm like,
course.
dude, how shallow is this? Can't we just go scuba diving?
Yeah. Well,
He wants
we have to
I
have
don't know.
we got to set up stuff and we got to get people out there and we got to have a
Yeah, like
nice
a
place to stay.
submersible. like a like a robotic submersible, so you don't have to go. I mean, I feel like it's like literally right there. You could probably snorkel and see it.
Yeah,
I
you
don't really
definitely could.
get,
I don't know.
yeah. So I don't know. He has currently raised $400,000, and he's hoping to raise 500,000 more before going. Although this
So,
was in January when I read this, so maybe
okay.
he's raised more, but he doesn't have that much time left to raise that much.
Hey man, I was going to say it's as of recording this, I'm not going to say cuz you know this is going to be out a little later, but he doesn't have very long at all.
No, but we might have an update in August if he goes and looks. Maybe we should go. Maybe we should get financial backing for almost $1 million.
Hey, fans of this show, right now, we're going to go find Amelia Earhart's plane before this other asshole. We need at least $1 million. And we need it before
Right,
August. We actually,
right.
we probably need
This
it
is the race.
before mid July. That way we can
Yeah,
get there by
right.
August. You know what I
Yeah, I
mean?
mean, we're on vacation though, mid-July, so probably not gonna make it.
I don't know, man. If we can discover Amelia Earhart's plane, I think it's worth
Yeah.
not
I
going
mean, it would be interesting to see like where it happened, I guess, or to have
for
a
sure.
definitive, yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, she's definitely died. Fred died with her.
But
But
yeah,
like, what happened?
yeah. Well, and I think that's one of those things that I think why these stories intrigue us so much is because not only do we have a very charismatic individual that was celebrity status, but then to have no resolve to the story. You know, there's nothing
Yeah.
that we have. I mean, you can speculate, and the speculation that she crashed and they both died is pretty likely, but I mean, once again, you don't know.
Right. Maybe she lived on this island for
Days.
months. I mean, they searched though. That's what I don't understand. They searched like all this place. You'd think you'd see some debris. 'Cause they searched like pretty quick
I don't know, man,
after.
because the ocean is so big and it's hard to spot stuff like that, you know?
Yeah, I mean, if it was in the middle of the ocean, but if she made it close to an island and they were searching these islands, you'd think they would have found
Yeah,
Some piece of debris.
I don't
I
know.
don't
I
know.
mean, depending on the weather, like you said, maybe it was a
Yeah.
storm, kicked up a bunch of silt and sediment and obscured it. So,
Yeah. So,
yeah.
yeah, that's what I have on her, though. And Fred. Don't
Yeah.
forget
Don't
Fred
forget
Noonan.
Fred. That needs to be part of
Yeah.
the title.
Okay. Amelia Earhart. Don't forget Fred.
There you go. Catchy,
Yeah, perfect.
engaging, perfect. Speaking of catchy,
Yeah.
engaging, and perfect, listeners, you guys need to go check out anywhere that you have social media for the Paranoid Perspective. If you're listening to this on whatever you are listening to, whether it's Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or whatever else you're doing, give us a chance, give us a review, give us a like, comment, interact with anything that you see from the Paranoid Perspective. Check out the Patreon, patreon.com/the Paranoid Perspective Podcast. Got some cool perks over there as well. And as always,
Remember, just because you're paranoid doesn't mean they're not watching. See you next time on The Paranoid Perspective.